Hey, I'm Brandy Sickels, and this is Break Free Find Joy. I am not a therapist or guru. I'm just someone who got tired of beating myself up and learned there's a better way. So here's what I've discovered. When you stop going to war with yourself and start getting curious instead, something magical happens. You finally have the energy to chase what actually matters to you. This is where we talk about breaking the cycles that keep us small and stuck so we can go after our dreams instead of just surviving them. If you're ready for that kind of freedom, you're in the right place. So let's dive in. Everybody can go ahead and say hi to my little Matt Smith figurine. He may or may not stay on here the whole episode. Depends on if I feel like he is distracting. But today's episode is the magic of I wonder why. How to stop beating yourself up and start getting curious. My notes are over here. Let's just go ahead and move those over because I'm looking way too far over there. All right, that's a little bit better. So pretty clear from the title, but let's really dive into this. So one of the things that I've gotten asked so many times is especially when I say that I coach people or I help people with healing, they're like, well, what does that mean? Or, what's your process? And I have struggled to be able to, I can't even think of the word. It's annoying. It doesn't matter. Basically, being able to convey what it is to them. But I've done a lot of work to kind of break down the framework of how you really start the cycle of breaking a cycle, which is anyway. So, for example, today, like I said, I've been wanting to get this podcast back up and running for a while now, and I found all the different ways to stall that process and overcomplicate it. It's after midnight now, and I'm like, I just need to do it. And I was working with a different AI tool that I'm testing out, and it was asking really good questions. I was feeling really good, and then it gave me an outline for the episode, which this is probably the 50th one since I've been like, I'm gonna record an episode, and then I never actually use it. Anyway, I had my partner come in, and I asked him to read it and give me feedback. And when he came over, he was like, what do you need? And I had to use this process because when he did that, I immediately kind of started to feel insecure and a lot of emotions flooded in, because the thing is, I called him over to look at it for feedback because I was stuck, because I don't know what it is I need and why I'm stuck. Like, I guess I was just hoping he was going to come over, he was going to see it, he was just going to like magically be able to know what I needed. I'm not really sure. You can tell. So when he was asking for more specifics or whatnot, I couldn't give it to him. And in the past, this probably could have, I definitely would have responded more with an attitude, anger, maybe passive aggressiveness of like, fine, I'll just do it myself, or never mind. But this time I was like, I don't know. He's like, well, I thought you had something for me to read, because I was like, let's come to the computer, you can see. I was like, well, I do, but I don't. Like, so here's the thing, kind of went through all the different things that were going on, and it still wasn't making sense, and I was more confused. He was confused. He wanted to help me, but I couldn't help him help me, which is a situation I get myself in all the time. So I really had to take a breath and sit with it. And I allowed myself to be silly instead of defensive. And it was really hard because in that moment, and maybe you guys can relate to this if you are someone who has been a people pleaser or whatnot, like it was me seeing the like a little bit of discomfort on his face that was like, ooh, all the warning bells start going off in my body. I don't like to put people in uncomfortable situations. I can very much often pick up on other people's emotions and things like that. So when they start to feel them, I am feeling them in my body. And this is a part of people pleasing that doesn't always get talked about, but the reason why we default to that is we go to take care of other people so that they calm down so that we feel better. So it is a selfless thing to put other people in front of us, but the reason why we do that is for our internal safety. And that has been something that I've done for my entire life. As far back as I can remember, I was always paying attention to all the different people and things going on and trying to make everybody else happy, because now I know that I'm older is because that's how I felt safe, and that's how most kids feel safe. That's we learn it very, very early. So hopefully that makes sense. So let's dive into how I was actually able to create those skills, because this is a skill set and this is something that I wish was talked about more, and I'm very passionate about actually saying these things out loud, because it's not something that you're born with it. These are skills that are taught and that can be practiced, and um, you can get better at. If you don't have these skills now, it doesn't mean you're never going to have them. It just means you need to be intentional about creating them. And just because you know it does not mean that you're going to do it without any issues. I wish that's how it worked, but that's just not how humans work. Um, Honestly, here's the thing. I've worked with different AI tools now, and it's not how computers work either. There are lots of different things when you're going through and you'll tell it not to do something, and you might have to um, tell it again later because all the things. So um, sometimes we say, like, oh, I'm not a computer, whatever. Just know, I think it's just a part of life. We are going to mess up and get things wrong. The best thing that we can do is learn how to dust ourselves off and accept that without really crashing into that shame spiral and things and letting it keep us down for longer, because it's going to happen. It's basically inevitable. So it's about how do we become resilient enough to stand back up again, and also reflect back on what happened and how to prevent it from happening again without it stopping us and keeping it from moving forward, because it is good to reflect and to grow from our past experiences. But we can often, this is something that happens to me often, get stuck in that because I don't want to repeat that thing again. I don't want to have the same mistake again. But oftentimes it is going to happen, hopefully less frequently and all of those things. But when you see it as a practice and something that you can grow on, it does become a little bit easier. Now, this particular skill of learning how to get curious and ask yourself questions and sit in the discomfort is a little bit more abstract. So I think that can be something difficult. So I just kind of want to preface it with something. Let me see if I can find it. It was a quick little thing as I was walking through, asking myself questions and having different tools and people ask me questions. I was like, oh, here's the way that I think of it. So really, it's, think about when you're a baby and you're learning how to walk. We know that's a skill, right? And as babies, they're not worried really about, they pay attention to the reactions of the adults and their environment around them, but it's not like they are taking it in a cognitive way. They're not judging themselves and shaming themselves, right? So take a baby learning to walk. They're doing it over and they're falling over and over again, right? They're not just learning how to walk, they also have to build that muscle so their legs can actually hold up their weight as they walk. I haven't checked this scientifically, but I can almost guarantee like their brain understands the concept of walking before their body has the mechanics, and they're practicing the mechanics of it, but then they still have to build the muscle of being able to walk and all of those things. We all know, even as grown adults who have been walking 33, and sometimes I still fall. It's going to happen for a lot of different reasons, right? And that's something that often, you know, we might laugh at ourselves, call us clumsy, maybe have some judgment there, but often, you know, we just know, okay, well, just because I tripped doesn't mean I don't know how to walk and I'm never going to walk again, whatnot. But it's harder to take that into other things. So I think it's just important to realize that, again, this is a skill. It can be built, feels very abstract, but once you catch on to the cycle and you bring your awareness to that and you are intentional about building that skill, it does start to compound quickly as you work on it. So let's go ahead and break it down. Essentially, the biggest problem is why we do this. We cut ourselves off from our own voice because listening to that would mean feeling the feelings. Sometimes that's just how much we've abandoned ourselves, and that pain, the anger, the fear, all these different things. And often we've come up with coping skills, which is the people pleasing and staying busy or distracted, so that we're not sitting in those feelings and that discomfort. We do all these other things instead. We have to catch that and go from, I don't know why I feel this way, to I wonder why I feel this way. And the practice is to catch yourself getting defensive, fearful, whatever that looks like for you. So like I said, when my partner came in and I asked him to help and give me feedback, and I seen just that look of confusion on his face, immediately I had this like fear in my body. And it really was, I would say, like the first thing was like, I never should have asked for help, was like the first thought. And then the second one was, I'm dumb. Why would I ask for help if I didn't even know what I needed in the first place? And I had to recognize that. I've been doing it for a long time, that like thankfully it's come pretty easily for me now. Doesn't mean that it's not uncomfortable. I could still feel it in my chest. I laugh when I get nervous and uncomfortable, and I've learned to embrace it as well and just allow myself to get silly instead of defensive and angry. I still did have, I'm sure if you asked from like his side, there was probably still some attitude or defensive, but it's just like accepting that and recognizing like, oh, I'm feeling these things. And instead of getting defensive or trying to focus more on his confusion, like how to alleviate the discomfort that he's feeling, just letting it be there. The way that I did that was just having to remind myself that he is allowed to feel his feelings and I'm allowed to feel my feelings. And this is why I wanted him to come over here, because he is different than me. His brain can see it in a different way. And since I'm stuck, that's why I reached out. So you catch it. I knew that I was already starting to second guess these things. To ask why. Again, this is something I've been doing for a long time. So immediately I was like, why am I feeling this way? And it's because I could see the confusion on his face. And I don't like when I make other people uncomfortable. I am an awkward person. Some people might tell you that I'm not, but I am. Contrary to belief, most awkward people, we know we're awkward. We just don't know how to, we don't know how to not be. That's kind of the thing with it is I just don't know how to get myself out of those situations. I don't want to be in the awkward situation anymore than you do. It is what it is. So being able to ask myself that question and sit with it, this is the biggest skill. I'm good at it now, but I've been doing this for, I would say, consistently for the last 7 years. And it's been a lot of work. And depending on what the situation is, it can be harder. The third thing is going to be taking that pause. So when you're first working on this framework, taking that pause is going to be so hard because, one, you're immediately just either going to want to answer the question because your brain likes certainty, whether it's correct, healthy, whatever, it doesn't matter. Certainty is better. That's why it's hard to break patterns. Our brains do not like change. Change is immediately unsafe because it's unknown. Even if logically we can see that, like, say you're in a toxic relationship where the person is treating you badly and you get to a point where logically that that's not a healthy relationship, getting yourself to leave it is very difficult because that person is so ingrained in your life that there's so many unknowns when you take them out of it. And that's scary. It is hard. It could be the same thing. Like, you have parents that you love, but they don't respect your boundaries and, can cause a lot of issues that way. It's hard to step away from that dynamic and to change how you act and all of those things. So taking that pause, one way that I really worked on this in the beginning was doing something in that. So taking a breath. So there's a quick and easy, there's different breaths that you could do. I like the one, I think it's called box breathing, or the 4x4, where you just take breath in for 4 seconds. Don't remember if it matters if you do it through your nose or your mouth, but I think you're supposed to do it through your nose. So just 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold at the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in for a count of 4. So just like that. Because it's going to give your brain something else to focus on. I didn't say that it's easy. If you're looking at me and thinking, that's too simple, how does that connect? It's kind of not supposed to connect. It's almost the point, because you want to break the thought cycle that you're in. If you are feeling really defensive, heightened emotions, and you catch it and you get yourself to ask, why am I feeling this way? I wonder why this is happening. You want to stop your pattern that has been created. It's ingrained in you. So asking the question and then saying, oh, I got to do my breathing. It just gives you just enough. Even if you only get your inhale before another thought comes in, like this is stupid or this will never work, or those are some of the things that came up for me. That's a win. So something that I also really want to point out, here's the thing. This is what a 4-step process to catch yourself in what you're feeling. Ask the question and then take the pause, whether it's breathing. It could be something like tapping your hand on the table 5 times, snapping your finger, whatever it is that works for your brain to signal like, I've asked this question. Now, how can I like distract myself to cut that thought cycle? And then the last step is remembering that this is a practice. This is not about being perfect, doing these things correctly, having grand reflections each time. No, that's not the point. The point is the practice. It is strengthening that muscle of sitting in the discomfort and not falling into shame or blame, and allowing your body to start to feel safe, at least safer, in the discomfort of the unknown. Oftentimes, it's not just sitting in the discomfort of the unknown. Often we do know. We know why we're doing things. We just don't allow ourselves to reflect on that and to take ownership of it so that we can make different choices. It's uncomfortable for us to realize the roles that we are playing in our own suffering. But once we do, and we really take that authority back and see that our choices are a big part of why we are where we are in our lives, that's when we also realize we have the power to change it. And that can be scary in itself, because then it's like, well, if I fail and it's my fault. It already is. You might be blaming other people and you might fully believe that it's not your fault. Here's the thing. A lot of things in our life are not our fault that it happened to us. I was abused. The abuse is not my fault. The healing is my responsibility. The way that I cope with all the feelings and things that come with the abuse and the things that have happened to me is my responsibility. The choices that other people made that harmed me are their fault. I did not cause that for myself. And I have to accept that I have control over my response and reactions. It's the only way that you can move forward to making change, to grow and to heal and to do those things. And it's going to bring up anger, and that's okay. You get to be angry. This isn't about just feeling love and joy and light and peace. I wish it was, but that is just, it's not the case. The thing is to feel more joy and love and happiness in your life. You often have to face and accept the anger, the fear, the judgment that's there. You face these quote unquote bad emotions and feelings, and that opens up the space to feel the good emotions. I really like the all the research into emotions now and how it's important that we learn there's no good and bad emotions. There just are. Now, they can trigger us to do actions that you can categorize as good or bad or healthy or unhealthy, but all of the emotions that you feel are valid. The other thing is like that emotion or that feeling only actually lasts about 90 seconds. It really is a chemical release that happens, and the rest of that, I think what most of us would categorize as the emotion is actually the story that we tell ourselves about the feeling that we had. So say you're out to lunch with a bunch of your friends and everyone's talking and having a good time, and you say something and everyone kind of looks at falls silent for a second, and then they just kind of brush you off and keep talking. It you feel probably rejection, embarrassment, fear. There's all these things that come up, and then your brain starts to go to work to figure out, whoop, all the alarms are going off. You had a chemical reaction in your body. It's going through all the times that your body has felt this before, and it wants to give a reason as to why it's feeling that way so that it can find a solution so it doesn't feel this discomfort anymore. How can it keep you safe? That is what is going on underneath all of this. And again, why it can be very difficult to break this cycle. Because it's not just about the one situation, it's connected deeply to all of these other things. And it can feel very overwhelming for good reason. Because it's not just the situation. Your body and your brain really are connecting that to every time you felt that before. And you don't cognitively realize it. It's just a part of our wiring. Kind of unfortunate in some ways, but it is doing its best job to protect us with the information that it has. It is our job to, once we know that, to then say, oh, let me take this off autopilot. That feeling isn't actually correct. This learned behavior that I've been doing for a long time, every time I felt afraid or abandoned, actually isn't helpful. And every time I feel that way isn't actually true. It's just the way that I've interpreted it. So I want to choose to evaluate whether or not this actually is unsafe for me, instead of letting the autopilot decide and continue to act in a way that doesn't actually align with my values or the way that I want to show up in my life or my relationships. So, to recap, let's talk about the magic of wondering why and the 4-step process that can help you break this cycle and start to take control of the way that you respond. Step 1 is going to be catching yourself getting defensive, fearful, whatever it is, just catching that initial emotional reaction that comes up when somebody says something that just it triggers you. 2 is to get curious and ask why. I wonder why. Why am I feeling this way? 3 is to take that pause, take the breath, use the box breathing, tapping, whatever it is that helps you break that cycle and move from ruminating on what just happened to taking a breath, to pause and allow your body to just really rest. Like I said, an emotion really only lasts 90 seconds in our body. So ideally, if we can break that cycle for that long, it's going to help more. But any pause is a win. It's a practice. 4, remember that this is the practice. It's about taking the imperfect action, whether you take one inhale before your brain goes back to the thought loop, or you don't catch what actually happened till later and you're thinking about the situation. And that's when you're like, I wonder why I reacted that way. And then you're like, oh, let me pause. Actually, what am I supposed to do from here? The breathing, whatever it is, and then you start thinking about the steps. That's a win. I guess it'd be a 5-step practice, because I really want to add in there to celebrate each time you do one of those things. Even just the act of bringing awareness to the patterns of when this happens, and really starting to be like, oh, I feel, when they said that, I feel this. Oh, I didn't even realize that. Sometimes it's realizing your stomach hurts when you go into certain rooms or environments or whatever. And again, this can be very uncomfortable at first, because a lot of us kind of disassociate a lot more than what we realize. We keep ourselves so busy that when you start learning to be more in tune and in the moment with your mind, your body, and your spirit, it does feel uncomfortable. It can often feel like it is getting worse before it gets better, but it's just because you are actually being present and feeling those things as they're happening, rather than them piling up and then them causing you to crash later, all the different things that can happen. So hopefully that makes sense. So just remember to look at this like you're a baby learning how to walk. Don't judge yourself, and remind yourself that, hey, you gotta really observe it. You're figuring out how it works. Then you're starting to practice and use those muscles and things, and you're building the muscles. So it's going to take time. No judgment, no shame, none of those things, just presence and practice. Learning how to build these skills. And it is a skill. It's not about your worth or your identity. This is a skill that isn't often really taught directly, like in saying this is what it is and what we're doing. It's something that we learn from the people around us. So if the adults or the people that we had in our lives didn't have these skills, then we didn't pick up on it. And that's okay. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're just learning. And if you're here today, it means you're doing the work. And that's huge. This is been 30 minutes of an episode and you guys have made it through. Hell yeah. Celebrate. And I get to celebrate myself because I've actually freaking did it. I stopped procrastinating and worrying. Does that mean that I'm not going to overthink this after? No. But I get to celebrate the work that I've done, and then celebrate the fact that I'm willing to keep going, because the work isn't over, and it's never going to be over, because I still have breath in my lungs, and I really want to keep going. I want to keep learning and growing so that I can be the best version of myself, for my kids, my family, and for all the people that I want to reach and help, so they can be the best version of themselves for their kids, and so our world can become a better, safer place for all of us, because we deserve it. Being human is hard, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because it just is. So with that, we're going to give it a close. Much love. Take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, and remember these are skills that you're building. And I am so incredibly proud of you.